We continue now at the top of Daf Kuf Aleph Amud Aleph and Mesechet Kesubos. This is Kesuvos Daf 101a. Shmuel is continuing to explain the differences between a girl who refuses, let's say she's a girl who is a minor who is married and she refuses the marriage, and a girl who is a minor who is married and she is divorced with a get. And so Shmuel says, Yotza beget tzricha lahamten shlosha chadashim. Unlike a situation of miyun, of refusal, if a woman is divorced with a get when she is a minor, so then she has to wait 3 months to marry someone else. Rashi over here says, Yotza beget tzricha lahamten v'afagav deleka l'sfuke ketana b'muberes. Now, even though there's no chance that this girl who is a minor is pregnant, so the real reason for waiting 3 months doesn't really apply. When it comes to married women, so we don't make a distinction. So she's a married woman and she was divorced with a get, she has to wait 3 months. And the Gemara continues, what exactly is Shmuel's Chiddush? Tanina Kulu, because all of these have already been taught. Because it says in the Mishnah, Hamima Enes Bi'ish. Let's say you have a situation of Hamima Enes. That refers to a woman again who's a minor, a girl who's a minor who refuses the marriage. So it says, Hu mutter b'krovoseha, v'hi muteris b'krovav. It says that he is mutter in her relatives, and she is mutter to his relatives, meaning to say that undoes the entire marriage retroactively. And also she's not disqualified from kahuna. Again, it's not like a divorce. Nasan la get, on the other hand, if he gives her a get, who asur b'krovo said, then he's forbidden with her relatives. V'hiasura b'krovav, and she's forbidden with his relatives. Upasla min hakuna, and also she is disqualified from the kuna. So you see exactly what Shmuel is teaching us is all in a Mishnah. And so the Gemara answers, Tzricha lahamten gimel chadashim tzricha le delotnan. The Chiddush is no, because it says she has to wait 3 months. That already Shmuel added, that in a situation of Yotza beget, unlike a situation of Miyun, she has to wait 3 months to remarry, so that was not in the Mishnah, and that is what Shmuel is teaching us. And the Gemara continues, Leima ketanoi, let us say that this is a machlokes tanoim, this issue between Rav and Shmuel, in terms of the distinctions between a case where there is Miyun and a case where there is divorce by a girl that's a minor. Rabbi Eliezer says, Ein maisa katana klum. What a girl who is a minor does, it's nothing, it has no substance. V'ein balo zakoi b'mitziasa. In such a marriage, the husband, he doesn't get those things which she finds. It's not like a regular marriage. V'lo b'maisi yodeh, he doesn't get her earnings. V'lo b'hafares nedareh, he's not able to annul her vows. V'eino yorsha, he doesn't inherit her. V'eino metamelo, he doesn't become tameh on her account. Klolo shel davar, the rule is eino ki ishto l'chol davar. She's not considered his wife in any respect. Ela shetzricha miyun, except there's a halacha that there's a requirement of miyun, she has to refuse in order to leave the marriage. Rabbi Yoshua says, Maisa katana klum. No, there is substance to these deeds of a girl that's a minor, to this action. Ubala zakoy v'mitziyasa, her husband does get those things which she finds. Uv'maisi yodeh, he gets her earnings. Uv'afaras nedareha, he's able to annul her vows. V'yarsh, and he becomes tameh to her. Klalo shel davar, the rule is harei ki ishto l'chol davar. It's like his wife in all respects. Ela sheyotza b'miyun, except that it's different than a regular wife, because she's able to leave through miyun. She can refuse the marriage. She doesn't require a get. And so the Gemara says, Leimo Rav the Amar Rabbi Eliezer. Let us say that Rav, he follows Rabbi Eliezer, meaning to say he follows Rabbi Eliezer that there is nothing, the marriage is nothing. Shmuel the Amar Rabbi Yoshua, and Shmuel says like Rabbi Yoshua, no, that the marriage does have substance, and that's why Shmuel makes this distinction between cases of miyun and cases of divorce. And the Gemara says, Aliba de Rabbi Eliezer kuli alma pligi. When you're going according to Rabbi Eliezer, there is no dispute. It is obvious that Rabbi Eliezer has to follow the opinion of Rav. Shmuel cannot say he follows Rabbi Eliezer. Ki pligi aliba de Rabbi Yoshua. The machlokas would be within Rabbi Yoshua. Shmuel Rabbi Yoshua. Shmuel obviously can go like Rabbi Yoshua because Shmuel says it's like a marriage. Rabbi Yoshua says it's like a marriage. But when it comes to Rav, he can also say like Rabbi Yoshua. Adkan lo kam Rabbi Yoshua hasam elam midida l'didei, because Rabbi Yoshua was only talking about things that go from her to him. Avol mididei l'dida lo, but things that go from him to her, he would not say the same halachas. And Rashi over here explains, Aliva de Rabbi Eliezer kol yalma lo pligi. According to Rabbi Eliezer, there's no dispute. Kilomar, it means to say, Hada amrit Shmuel damar Rabbi Yoshua v'lo Rabbi Eliezer. That which you said, that Shmuel has to follow Rabbi Yoshua and cannot follow Rabbi Eliezer. Shaper ko amrit demoda Shmuel to Rabbi Eliezer in ksuba l'shum ketana. That's certainly true. Shmuel would admit that according to Rabbi Eliezer, a ketana does not receive a ksuba. The hashta yerushasum mitziyasum demidida l'didei ko amar de lo mesukma bot hakanta de rabbanan. Because if already Rabbi Eliezer Eliezer is saying that in terms of inheriting her, in terms of getting the things that she finds, things that go from her to him, so that doesn't apply in this marriage. That already Rabbi Eliezer said. So kol sheken ksuba, so certainly she's not going to get a ksuba to mididei l'dida. That's something that goes from him to her. That certainly will not apply. Why is that true? Because the whole point of this marriage of saying that a girl who is an orphan, and she can be, meaning she doesn't have a father, she can be married off by her mother and her brother, that's all for her benefit that we're allowing her to get married. We don't want people to treat her like hefker, like she's nothing, so it's good for her to get married. Because a ketana, girl that's a minor, she doesn't know how to protect herself from being seduced, and therefore this is all for her benefit. So of course, if Rabbi Eliezer is saying that in such a marriage, so he's not going to get anything out of it, he's not going to inherit her, he's not going to get the items that she finds, etc., certainly she is not going to get her ksuba. Ki pligi alibid Rabbi Yoshua. The machlokas amoraim would be within Rabbi Yoshua. Kilomar hada amrit Rav Rabbi Eliezer v'lo Rabbi Yoshua lessa. When you're saying that Rav can't follow Rabbi Yoshua, that's not true. The Rav afilu Rabbi Yoshua amr, because Rav could follow Rabbi Yoshua as well. Because Adkan lo kam Rabbi Yoshua demaisa kayam and elam midido lididei kegon Yerushasa umaisa yadeh umitziyasa shula bal. Maybe all Rabbi Yoshua said was things that go from her to him that applies to the marriage. So he can inherit her, he can get her earnings, he can get what she finds. Ki echidlo limnu miliso. So we want to encourage men to marry women in this situation. V'chachamim gazru shatinasa kedei shelo yinhagu bo hefker. Because again, the chachamim want it. They made a gezer that there should be this marriage so that they shouldn't treat her like hefker. So it makes sense that Rabbi Yoshua would say he would get these benefits to encourage him to marry her. But to say the other way around, that he has to give her a ksuba, kagon ksuba, tanai ksuba, like the ksuba and the conditions of the ksuba, that maybe Rabbi Yoshua wouldn't say, and that's why it's possible that Rav can follow both Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yoshua. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. The Mishnah said, "Velo below." So also when it comes to the worn-out clothing that's not given the way the Mishnah said it, it's not given to a woman who's miyun, who refuses the marriage, a girl that's a minor. It's not given to a situation of an islandess, and it's not given in a situation of shnios. Let's say the relationship is asur midrabanan, one of those asur relationships, forbidden relationships, on a dirabanan level. And so the Gemara says, Amar le Rav Huna bar Chia le Rav Kahana. Rav Huna bar Chia said to Rav Kahana, Amrid lon mishmei de Shmuel, that you said to us in the name of Shmuel, that when we talk about these worn out clothing, lo shanu el nichsei milug, what we mean to say, we're only talking about nichsei milug. Again, nichsei milug are items that the woman, that the wife brings into the marriage, and the husband gets the fruits of those items. Let's say it's a piece of land, for example. He would get the fruits of that land, but the actual item would go back to the wife when she leaves the marriage, and whatever would happen to that item, if it goes up in value, down in value, that would be the wife's gain or the wife's loss. So this halacha that we're saying over here, she doesn't get the belos, that would be if they're nichsei milug. Avol nichsei tzon barzel isla. But if it's nichsei tzon barzel, meaning those are also items that are brought into the marriage, but by nichsei tzon barzel, they're written into the ksuba what the value is, and at the end of the marriage, when she leaves the marriage, she will get the value no matter what, whether those items went up or down, she will always get back the original value. Rashi over here says, Tzon barzel, tzon shu koshu miskayim lo kebarzel, lefi shekibel olav achrayas. The idea is that it's hard like iron. That's what we mean, nichsei tzon barzel. The idea is that those items, they're written into the ksuba at a certain value, and they don't lose. She'll never lose the value. She'll never gain the value either. She'll always get back that exact value. But nichsei milug is she'echnisa lo v'lo shalman b'ksuba. Again, that refers to property she brings into the marriage, and it's not evaluated at a certain price in the ksuba. V'akaren leisha, she just owns the actual principal. Upeiros labal, and the fruits, those go to the husband. And again, when she leaves the marriage, let's say in a divorce, she's going to get those items. She's going to get the karen back, the principal back. And Rashi continues, Nichsei tzon barzel hanishom b'ksuba, so those things that are again written and evaluated into the ksuba, v'dona dunya dehanola salami beisavuv, mekabel of achrayas, and the husband is saying, I'm taking achrayas, at the end of the marriage, you're going to get back that exact value, lachzir, and he's going to return to her, kishateitze mimen, when she leaves him, avol below, the nichsei tzon barzel. But then again, what was said in the name of Shmuel is, if it's below, if it's worn out clothing, which were written into the ksuba, and she gets back the original value, so isla. So then again, Shmuel said that she would be allowed to get in these situations. And so the Gemara now continues, Heve bo Rav Papa. So Rav Papa, he asked regarding this, and he said as follows, Ahaya, he said, on what is this going on? In other words, when we made this statement over here, we had three different kinds of situations of women in the Mishnah. So when Shmuel is making the statement that the Mishnah is talking about nichsei milug, and when it comes to nichsei tzon barzel, she would get, which case in the Mishnah are we going on? If you say we're going on the situation of a girl who's a minor who refuses the marriage, she walks out of the marriage. So So if these items are still in front of us, these things, these belows, these worn out clothing that she brought into the marriage, she should take both. And if they're no longer, if these items no longer exist, so lo shakla. So actually by a mima enes, she shouldn't take either of them. Rashi over here says, isnu kayam, and again, if they're still in front of us, isla, she should get both. She'ein lanu lakonsa. We shouldn't fine her in this regard. These are items she brought into the marriage. She should take them out of the marriage. There's no reason to say that to apply a fine to her that she shouldn't get it. Lesnu kayam. And now, if they're not in front of us, Rashi says, bein nichse melug, bein detzon barzel, doesn't matter what kind of items they are. Lesla, she shouldn't get it. Sheyachal lomar, because he can say shali hotseisi. Because what happened was, again, she brought this into the marriage, and now he's used them up, he's given them away, he's sold them, whatever the case is. He can say they're really mine. Sharei b'reshus bezdin is asiya, because I married her with the permission of bezdin. And when she leaves the marriage, I'm going to give her whatever was in the ksuba. Even by nechse milug, now when it comes to nechse tzon barzel, so he's allowed to spend them, and then the issue is, does he owe her a ksuba or not? So if he doesn't owe her a ksuba, like we said in the Mishnah, there's no ksuba here, so there's no issue. But even by nechse milug, says Rashi, even though really he shouldn't be spending them because she owns the principal, miu yachol omer, he could still say, ein li lachziran, I don't have to return them, ad shegreshena, until I divorce her, shema tamus bechayev yershena, because maybe she's going to die in my lifetime, maybe I won't ever have to give it. In other words, in this case, she's not leaving the marriage through divorce. In this case, she's leaving the marriage through miyun. So he can say, look, in this situation, maybe I took this nechse mulug that really belonged to her, this principle really belonged to her, but fine, if I divorce her, so then I'm going to give it. But why should I give it just because she refused the marriage? There's always the possibility that I would never have to return it, because we know there's always a possibility that the wife would die first, and the husband would actually inherit the nechse mulug. So he can always argue, there's no reason that just because I spent it, there's no reason for me to have to pay her back in a situation of miyun. And so that's why Rav Papa says it can't be that Shmuel made his statement when it came to a mima enes. And so the Gemara continues, Ella Eilinus, rather when Shmuel made the distinction and said that she doesn't get the Nichse Melug, but she gets the Nichse Tzon Barzel, maybe he's going on the case of the Eilinus. That's a situation again where he married the woman and it turned out that she was an Eilinus. He didn't realize. It turned out she was not developed in terms of maturity. She's not able to have children. But the Gemara again says you wouldn't make this distinction. Ida Isnu, because if these items are in front of us, again, they haven't, the husband hasn't gotten rid of them, hasn't sold them off. So Idi v'Idi Shakla, so then she should get them both. And Ida Lesnu, and the Gemara says, let's say they're no longer in front of us, so on the contrary, Ibcha mi boile, it should have been the exact reverse, the exact opposite of what Shmuel himself said. Nichse milug, it should be that by Nichse milug divir reshus akaimi. That's already in her reshus, meaning those are things that are always in her possession. So Isla, that's the one she should take. And Nichse tzon barzel, when it comes to Nichse tzon barzel, which really, again, that's written into the ksuba, but really that's in the husband's reshus. So delav reshus akaimi, that's not in her possession. So Lesla, she shouldn't get it. So if you're going to make a distinction over here, it should be the opposite distinction of Shmuel. It should be that she receives back the nechse malug, because that's property that she owns throughout the marriage. He just gets the payros. The nechse tzon barzel, if she's not receiving her ksuba, and he's allowed to spend the nechse tzon barzel, so she should not get that back. And Rashi over here says, Idi isnu, idi vidi shakel. Again, if they're in front of us, she should take it back. Shari hu motzia midas. He's the one that's divorcing her, and therefore she should take her items. Vidi lesnu, v'mnei shelo hayalo lahalos b'daito shema timtza ailanis atapotro. So then you're saying, maybe, okay, they're not there. He didn't realize she might be an ailanis, so he doesn't have to pay back for using it. In basa lachlok behen, if she's going to want to take. But still, ibcha mi boile, nechse milug, the reshusakami, you should still say the reverse. Shelo hayalo livelosanu lilovshan. When it comes to nechse milug, he shouldn't have been wearing them. He shouldn't have worn them out. That should be Isla. She should get that. Because they were going to say that that's really the Karen that really belongs to her. But when it comes to Nichse Tzon Barzel, he spent that, he used that Birishus, and therefore he shouldn't have to give that back. And so the Gemara continues, Ela Ashniya. Rather, the statement of Shmuel, when he makes this distinction, it's going on a situation where it was a forbidden relationship on a Rabbanan level. The Kansu Rabbanan L'dida B'didei, and the Rabbanan, they make a knas to her with his, or L'didei B'didei, and to his with hers. And Rashi over here explains, Ashniya Shem Nisui Aveira. We're talking specifically about the case where the marriage was an Aveira. V'taimu Dida Mishum Knasu Chagon de Lesnu. And the case over here is, the items are not in front of us, and it's actually a fine. That's why we would say that she wouldn't collect. The Kansu Rabbanan Kalamar Midina Ipchami Boile. What the Gemara is saying over here is really, if you're going to treat it the way it should be treated, it should actually be the reverse. Really, she should get back the Nichsei Milug. That's the stuff he's not supposed to spend, and she should not get back the Nichsei Tzon Barzel. So why do we reverse it? El Chachamim Hafchu Es Hadavar Lakor Mehen Toras Nesu. And what the Chachamim are doing is they're purposely flipping it to show this is not a good marriage. Kansu Osami Mashayaroy Ligvos Mishalo Umayni Umona Masayim Umizonos Uvelos the Nichsei Milug. They make a knas on her. She doesn't get what she normally would collect. She can't get the 100 or 200 of the ksuba. She can't get mizonos. She can't get the worn out clothing of the nechsei milug that he wasn't supposed to spend. So that shows that the marriage is not good from her end. They also knas him. He should be allowed to get the worn out clothing that were nechsei tzon barzel, shehotzi bereshus, which he spent with permission, and that we don't give him. So it's actually a knas specifically to reverse it, because of the fact that this marriage is forbidden on a D'Rabbanan level. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rav Shimi Barashi says, Shma minami de Rav Kahana. You see from Rav Kahana, Ailole glima karna have velo michsi laviazal adeboli. You see that in general, if let's say she brings a cloak into the marriage, so that's considered a principal. It's considered really her property, and he shouldn't be using it and wearing it out, because again, when she brings in these items into the marriage, he's allowed to get the peiros, he can get the fruits, but he's not allowed to use the principal, and you see that we're treating the cloak, the garment, like a principal. And the Gemara says, V'amar Rav Nachman Pira have it, but 1 second. Didn't Rav Nachman say that it's considered, to use the clothing is considered like peiros? And here it seems to be that to use the clothing is considered like Karen, like principal. And the Gemara says, Rav Nachman Pliga, yes, Rav Nachman would argue on what Rav Kahana is saying. Rashi over here says, Shema minami Rav Kahana damar shniya ein la belos de nichsei milug. Because what's Rav Kahana saying? He's saying by a situation of a secondary erva, which is a forbidden relationship, she doesn't get the worn out clothing of the nichsei milug. And the reason is just a knas. It's a fine. Really, she should get it. Apparently, if it was a normal, regular relationship that was kosher, she would be allowed to collect, even though you have a situation where he spent it. So you see, he's not supposed to spend it. You see that, let's say she brings in a cloak and it's part of the nechsei milug. It's really Karen. She could sell it and then she could buy land with it and then he can get the peiros, but that's it. We don't say that the wearing it is the fruits and therefore he can use it up and that's fine. We don't say that. It's considered a principle. And the Gemara says, V'amar Rav Nachman Boisha, but didn't Rav Nachman say the opposite? And the Gemara again says, indeed, Rav Nachman would argue with this idea. And the Gemara continues at the two dots, Eina lohen ksuba. Again, these women in the Mishnah, they don't receive the ksuba. Amar Shmuel says, Loshanu elamanim masayim. The Mishnah is talking about the 100 or the 200, the base amount of the ksuba. Aval tosefes yesh lehen. But in terms of, let's say, any additional parts, any additional gifts that were in the ksuba, they would receive it. Rashi over here says, Aval tosefes yesh lehen dematona bi'alma yoivla b'chibas bia. Here, because of the love of the relationship, so here he's going to give her an extra gift that still would apply in these situations. Tanya nami hachi. The Gemara says we have a brisa that supports this statement of Shmuel as well. Nashim sha'amru chacham ein lehen ksuba kagon hamamaenes v'chavroseh. All these women that the chacham say they don't get the ksuba, like the girl who refuses the marriage, and the other cases in the Mishnah. Ein lehen mana masayim. What we're saying is they don't get the 100 or the 200. Aval toseves yesh lehen, but they do get the additional parts that are written into the ksuba. Nashim sha'amru chachamim yotzos shalo b'ksuba. Now, let's say you have the women where they don't use the phrase ein lohen ksuba, but it says yotzos shalo b'ksuba. They leave without a ksuba. What are examples of that? We learned this earlier. Kagon overes aldos v'chavroseh. Those are women who transgress the religion. In similar cases, they're listed in the Mishnah earlier. So if it uses that expression, ein lohen tosefes v'chol shekein mana masayim, they don't get the additional part of the ksuba. Certainly, they don't get the base amount of the 100 or the 200. And finally, v'hayotzes mishum shem ra. Let's say you have a situation where the woman committed adultery. She's being divorced because of a bad reputation. So no teles ma shelifoneha v'yotzes. She can take what's in front of her, meaning to say she can take the nichsei milug and she can leave, and that's it. And the Gemara said, Messiah Leila Rav Huna, this actually supports Rav Huna. Tiyama Rav Huna, because Rav Huna said zin, so that if she commits adultery, lo hefsida, then she doesn't lose out on, and we'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Kof Aleph Amud Beis.